starting a business is a pretty interesting venture, but it's important to recognize that starting the business is one thing, the ability to scale it is quite another. So today we are going to be looking at leadership and processes and systems that can really set you up for success in business. Today we're doing a deep dive into these concepts, and I want to assure you that moving forward, the concepts that will really set you up for success. Today, I also want to acknowledge two of our strong supporters. So, from the US standpoint, if you're looking for capital to grow and scale your business across 50 states, we are working now with MB Capital that can really help you to access capital at 0% APR. To learn more about what we are doing with the MB Capital and helping you to access capital, I do encourage you to go to our description and you will see the link. Press on that link so you can get more information on how you can set your business up for success. Along with that, you can perhaps make direct contact with me, and I'll be so happy to interface with you to ensure that you have the information and the support to access the much needed capital. One last thing, coming to the Caribbean now, we have a very unique company. Now, the Caribbean and Guyana, Guyana is now one of the fastest growing countries in the world, and because of that, a lot of work related opportunities are opening up. Now we have one of our partners, which is Global Healthcare Supplies Inc. They currently have a job opening for a marketing representative. Now, if you happens to be a pharmacist technician, someone who would have had some experience in the pharmaceutical industry, and you also have a passion for marketing, well, this is an opportunity for you to join this dynamic organization that can set you up for success. Now, to learn more about the company, I encourage you to go to the website. But to get your application in and to get your foot into the door, if you look on screen right now at that little green spot below, there is an email, and I want to encourage you to send your CV to this email, and someone will get right back to you with an opportunity for employment. So I want to encourage you in order to take advantage of this now if you're in Guyana and you may be even be in the Caribbean and you want an opportunity to work with this dynamic company, and take full opportunity of that now. Getting back to today's program, I have two dynamic personalities in studio with me today as we take a look at leadership processes and systems. The first person I want to introduce is no other than Peter Scott. And Peter Scott, he is the brain behind Legacy Chronicle Human Growth Initiative. And Peter is a theologist by profession. And he's the guy that really helps you to leave a legacy for yourself. Welcome, Peter.
Good to be here.
I also have, awesome. I also have Clement Frank. And Clement Frank, he's an economist by profession. He's a leader by practice. And he's now an author for Sound Business. Yeah. And I know today we're going to be definitely be covering a lot of topics on sound business leadership. So with that being said, I want to welcome my team on today's program. Hey guys, how are you? How was the weekend?
Great.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Glad to hear that.
You look at
Glad
us,
to
you look at us, and you see greatness.
Well said. Well said.
I take that.
Well received.
I take that. Awesome. All right, guys. Today it's a very topical issue. And for the last week or so, we have looked at leadership in the context of business. Today, I want to push a little further into looking at processes in the context of business. Now, To get a conversation started, I'm going to just recap of some of what I looked at last week. We looked at leadership, and we look at leadership from the context of you being a proactive leader. In business and in life, you want to position yourself to be proactive, not reactive. But what exactly does it take to be a proactive leader? And I would have clearly established that it takes three important concepts. One is the ability to think ahead. Are you thinking ahead of all the things that needs to be think ahead to start and scale your business? You need to see beyond the problem, and seeing beyond the problem is important because very often as you think ahead, you see a lot of the challenges that is before you, and many persons get stuck in the problem zone. So as a great leader, a proactive leader is about training the mind to see beyond the problem. Now, seeing beyond the problem doesn't mean that you're in the green. You need to come one step forward, and that's put yourself in that position of strength to take informed action. And what we have said, there's a major difference between taking action and informed action. Many persons take action that doesn't deliver the results that you want because you're not using scientific data to get that result. Now, what informed action does, it allows you as a subject matter expert to apply yourself in a manner that really helps you to achieve what we call the high reward, the measurable results, the predictable outcome with the highest degree of accuracy. If you are not the subject matter expert, you have options. Connect with a mentor, connect with a coach, connect with the sponsors, connect with a supportive community that can really help you to drive success. So as a rising star in business, you have all of these options that are available to you. So there's no reason why you should fail in business. The only reason you're going to fail is largely because you are not doing the things that we are talking about. Now, in the event that you need support, you know how to connect with us. Now, I want to go deeper into the belly of looking at leadership and processes. What exactly are processes? Now, what we have seen is that to run a business, you will have to have multiple processes. And the important thing is to recognize those processes and to quickly figure out how to systemize them. Now, let me give a few examples. On the macro level, you on the micro level, what you're going to see is there are certain processes like the HR processes. On the micro level, there are processes like the public relation processes. On the micro level, there are certain things like the finance processes. That's on the macro level, the bigger level. So within the organization, these are all processes. All right. Whatever processes that you're using, they also needs to be properly systemized. Now, there are also what we call the smaller processes, and I'm going to spend some time looking at some of those micro processes. For example, in starting and scaling a business, some of the micro things that you need to start looking at is who's the ideal client. All right. You need to ask yourself, who is your ideal client? Now, why is this important? Can you imagine being in business? Can you imagine, providing a product or a service to the client only to recognize that the client is not your ideal client? And this is what happens all the time. It's like you're serving meat, all right, to a vegetarian. What is likely to happen there? The vegetarian is going to refuse that. And that happens largely because you are not completely aware of who is the ideal client. So what are some of the micro processes that you can use to ensure that you have the information? For example, is there such a thing like market research? Are you able to deploy secondary market research or primary market research to ascertain information of your ideal client? So these are some micro processes that you need to understand. And in the absence of understanding this is some of the reason why your business is going to be going through struggles and challenges and difficulty and most likely fail. So it's important to understand your processes, all right, even at the micro level. If you're saying to yourself that I want to serve my clients at the highest level, you can't serve your clients at the highest level unless you understand the client. Starting a business and scaling a business is not about you, it's not about your ego. It's about the value offer that you're bringing to the market, and it is how aligned and how relevant that value offer is to the ideal client. Now, I'm going to go a little deeper into this, but I want to say this as I conclude. Very often on this podcast, I talk about stress testing the client, stress testing the market. And there's a number of things that I go through when I talk about stress testing. So I'm going to look at two stress tests that needs to be done. The traditional stress test that I will talk about, if you start, you want to make sure it makes sense. So how do you know that the business actually makes sense? One, you need to be certain that your MV or your minimum or most viable offer is relevant to the market. There's a process to establish this. You need to be certain that your MV or a minimum viable offer, a most viable offer is viable. There's a process to predetermine viability. You need to be certain that you have access to the market. There's a process that is going to help you to predetermine this. So you're taking all the guesswork out of your business processes and you're using data to inform the business decision-making process. You also want to know if your MV or your minimum or most viable offer is reaching an urgent need or reaching any immediate need. Now, there's a process to knowing all of this. The importance of knowing all of this is if there's no urgency, if there's no immediacy with your value offer, the purchase can be delayed. And if the purchase is delayed, it means that you're taking a longer time to cash flow your business. That's a challenge. But there are processes of all of these things. This is what we call the micro processes. Two more concepts that we're going to be looking at quickly here is you want to be certain that the ideal client, one, has the ability to pay. All right, they have the ability to pay for your MV or your minimum or most viable offer. How do you know this? There are certain demographic data that if you extract it and you study them properly, you can predetermine this. They have the ability to pay. But having the ability to pay doesn't mean that they have the willingness to pay. So the stress test allows you to understand all of this. Now, all of what I've just discussed are individual processes that must come together. This particular group of processes, they must be systemized for it to deliver the effectiveness that you want. So again, they are micro systemization, and then there's the macro systemization. And the topic is leadership processes and systems, what great minds do. So when you see a business as being successful, it's largely because they have spent a lot of time focusing on the right leadership styles, the right processes that they're systemizing so as to ensure that they have a smooth running machine, a smooth running business. All right, so I trust that that little information that you get help you. I will give another example of stress test, but I will bring this now to the business context when I come back from the next two speakers. So I want to start with Frank, and I would love to have your thoughts on the topic of the day. Over to you, Frank.
Thank you very much. We talk about great leadership. But where does great leadership begins? In anything you look at, there must be a genesis of it. And the genesis for becoming a great leader begins in your mind. So my thing this morning is to say to you or suggest how to master your leader mindset or your manager mindset. I- Everything about leadership, as we said before, um, organization and nations rise and fall in leadership. And leadership is often associated with pressure. Great leaders, they often go through those silent pressures that build up over time. The higher the rank, the more pressure is on. But it must be managed every single day. A good leader carries the weight of the department, the company, and more importantly, the people who work for them. I have been in many coaching seminars, executive seminars, and what I've come to realize is that leadership is a serious business, a position that can have many feelings, that success and failure at the same time. It's like a mixed emotion. But as I was saying, great leadership begins with your mind. That's what the first and foremost we must understand, that we've earned the position because the team wants you to be there. You know, we've seen great leaders let their insecurities prohibit them from trusting the right people under them to get a job done. You cannot be a good leader. You cannot be a sound leader if you're worried about someone taking your position. That's what's supposed to happen. It's like nature.
Hmm.
Another thing, you don't make the mistake of thinking that your leadership position and title makes you a leader. A lot of people don't realize that great leadership begins within oneself, and only certain individuals can really handle the pressures without projecting in a negative way. Anyone can be given a title and a position that are perceived as a leaders, but true healthy leadership starts with your mindset. Your mind is a place where promises and failures are planted. Your past experiences live in your mind, and the ability to be successful starts with how you think. There are great leaders in the right position, but they are being held back by their own limiting beliefs. We call it Gary self. Um, I'll get back to the term. Is where you not even sacrifice, but you execute your own self. Even a great strategy can succeed without the right mindset to implement it. And everyone, all of us, has known a bad leader at some point in our career, in our lifetime. In fact, bad management is one of the top reasons why employees quit their jobs. A Gallup poll shows that half of employees who quit cited their managers as a reason. So, how do these poor leaders even get to where they are in the first place? First is that they probably knew someone and were automatically placed in a position of leadership, but now they struggle to gain trust. They are now perceived as someone who only has a job because of personal connections and may spend the rest of their time trying to prove themselves and their worth to the wrong people. And our favorite is the yes man syndrome, where the employees are following their leader, causing them to falsely believe that they are great managers because people show up and say yes all day long. Reality check. These people are only following you because they must. The fact of the matter is, you, the leader, manage them, and their job security relies on them being subordinate. Then you have the everyone likes me leader, where leaders think they're good managers because everyone seems to like them. And don't be fooled because people appear to like you. Employees will automatically appear to like people in high position. In reality, they like your position. So there's still a chance for great leadership. The first thing is that you have to conquer your fear. Do not fear because there's still a chance. Humans, human beings all have qualities that can allow us to become the ultimate leaders. And if you're a parent, you have to lead your home. If you're a human, you have to lead your life. You can be the true, authentic boss your people are looking for. I'm willing to go the extra mile for, and not just because the paycheck depends on it. When I return, I'll come with the traits of a great leader. Thank you, Gary.
All right, great share, Frank. And I do believe that you made a lot of valid points. We have people who are placed into a leadership position, and very often that becomes their life sentence, largely because they are not seeing beyond the position and they are not seeing, ways of self-actualizing in that position where they can pass the baton and move on to something greater. As time progresses, we'll definitely look at that as, the negative effects of that, and perhaps how to get persons to break that negative way of thinking, which I think can put a stranglehold on many organizations. One example that I quickly want to share is that I could recall many years ago, I am supporting an association, but the leadership at the time of that association, they did not want to demit office, but the membership had wanted to change. They had wanted to see something different. So I literally had to amend the constitution of the organization, and where I gives power to what we call the past presidents. So the past president still, you know, had the option now of debating office, but still had some degree of influence over the organization, because I know that perhaps would have been the only thing to get them to move from that position of leadership and make the organization, membership happy. So, these are some of the things that, you have to deal with, and sometimes you just have to figure out the best way to create win-win situation. If not, you're going to be, you're going to have, issues at both sides to deal with. But that's a real point, valid point that you would have made, Frank. Peter, all to you.
Yeah, I'm so appreciative, Gary, of you doing these programs to really empower the community on what it is and what it takes to advance. And I said it a couple of times before, and I must just reiterate it again for that new person who is coming on, that 10 years ago, when I was doing my research for the programs that we do, if I had a program like this, I would have been so much advanced in what I am doing now. So take up every note when you come here, come with your pen and your paper, because you're getting a wealth of information about business development and entrepreneurship that can advance whatever it is that you're doing, in multiple forms. And as we look at today, the process and systems, what great minds do, from our standpoint, in our human growth and development programs, first of all, what we would inform, or what we do know, and is that businesses exist for one purpose. Businesses exist for one purpose, and it is for human growth. If businesses is not contributing to human growth, then it is more a part of the problem than anything else. So businesses exist for, that's the foundation upon which we build, because When we look at the world in which we live, from the human growth standpoint, we take a high level look. We take a high level look to see, trajectory to create a trajectory of human growth, where we're coming from, where we are today, and where we're growing. So if we're talking about human growth and development, human growth and especially in the respect of master planning, we take a very high level look, a bird's eye view, so that we can make effective decisions in terms of how humanity as a whole, what we're doing for our future. And so at first, when you look at it, sometimes it can be a little bit um, disheartening. But then when you realize that out of every challenge, and life is designed by challenges and overcoming challenges for us to create innovations. So there are three respect that, or from three standpoints that we I would approach this conversation today. And it is from human resource development, what great minds do, processes and systems, what great minds do, human resource. So, I want to look at it from the standpoint of human resource development, human network development, and then the context within the context of master planning. Now, within the human growth master plan program, we, as I mentioned, we want to look at humanity, where we're coming from, where we are, and where we're going, so that we can have informed decisions in what the programs that we are connecting, that we want to bring toward you who are viewing today. And the when we look at it from the standpoint of where human growth is concerned, the charts are showing that humanity is on a decline. I look at the birth rate from the 1950s today, and there is a very steep decline in the amount of humans, the amount of babies that are coming, that are being that are birthed on on an annual basis. With that being said, birth rate is what drives economy, especially in the United States of America, where you have something like a social security system. You need more people joining the workforce so that they can pay for the benefits through taxes or through the contribution, so that the older generation can be have the resource in place. So, from a human resource development standpoint, we want to make sure that there is a balance in the economy where birth rate is concerned. But then, when we look at the data, the data is working against us as a species. The next thing that we look at is the threats, uh, the the number of threats against humanity. So we look at the society, we look into crime and violence, we look at the death rate. So from one standpoint, less of us are being born, and those of us who are on the planet, then we have exponential threats that is, you know, eclipsing the life of those who are. So we have to bring some shine some light in that area. And then the third degree that we look where human growth is concerned, if we're going to really remedy and really build humanity as a species, a third component that we realize where human resource is concerned and the threats against human resource is a topic that is a big issue, perhaps globally, but particularly here in the United States. But it's a conversation that we have to have, because we are looking at the growth and the future of humanity as a whole. So I mentioned that there is lower birth rate from the 50s till now. less persons are being are adding to into the workforce. We look at the threats, the social threats uh, against humanity is pretty high. And then the third component is that the issue of many of the solutions that are necessary are not coming into the planet because uh, the management of sexuality, the management of human sexuality creates another problem, because now not only you we have less persons being born, but less persons are getting the chance to be born. So the young lady find that she's pregnant, and she decide that she's going to take the life of the baby. These are political issues, but we have to go beyond politics because we are looking at human resource development. And as I say, business and life is about human growth and development. So for us to really impact the community well, we have to look at the threats and we have to read the data. If we do not take the data into concern, well, look at it this way: human beings over the years, we have taken the time to look at what is happening in the animal kingdom, and we see in the earlier industrial times when wholesale, they would, animals would be at a threat. Human beings would go out and we bring certain species is at threat. No, there are rules and there are policies in place now that you cannot kill certain species, and that is so good, so great. But it so happens now that humanity herself is now at a threat where the policies, we have to read the data. We have to read the data, what it is saying. And because in dealing with the human resource development, then we now can go into the human network, how we're going to join forces together to solve some of these issues. And then the third component that I'm going to come back with is the master planning that is essential for us to get the job done. So I will just stop here and we can come back in the next time, in the next round.
All right, thanks for your share, and Peter. I see that you expand your thought process into some macroeconomic issues. Not that it's not relevant, it is relevant, but I, just want to acknowledge the importance of some of what you said. And it's a tough fight ahead, tough fight ahead. All right, but I want to come back to some of the things that we spoke about early on. And we talk about leadership, we talk about processes, and we talk about systems. Just before I left, I emphasized the importance of stress testing the business, stress testing the ideal client. Now I want to look at another stress test as in the context of your business processes. Now, so you want to start a business. How do you know the business makes sense? How do you know? So I'm going to identify a number of issues that should become part of your process, part of your microprocesses. The first concept that I want us to look at is who's your ideal client? And I have mentioned this early on, so I'm going to blow past this very fast. Now, once you've identified the ideal client, we say that is a process to get here. Next, you want to do what we call the brand identification. Now, it is based on investing time to learn the needs, wants, and expectations of the particular ideal client that should inspire your brand identification. Remember, I keep saying the product or service that you're going to be innovating is not necessarily for you. It has to reach the needs, wants, and expectations of the ideal client. And there are different types of consumer types in the market. They are the affluent society who consume products and services based on psychographics, based on their lifestyle, based on culture. And if you're ill aware of this and you innovate the wrong brand and position that wrong brand in front of them, you're going to lose. So let me go through some of the processes. Brand identification. Do you know how to go about identifying your brand and aligning that brand to the ideal client? And just let me share a little bit of this to you. In the marketplace, you have the premium brand, but then you have the complementary and the supplementary brand. Which brand are you identifying with? That will be influenced by your ideal client, by knowing your ideal client. There's a process to do all of this. And again, if you don't know the process, there is where you're going to have a lot of mismatching taking place. And it's going to undermine your potential to be successful in business. So now you've identified the client, you are now much better positioned in the brand identification. The next process that we're going to look at here is brand positioning. Now, your brand, your products or services, it has to be positioned in the market. But what exactly does brand positioning processes looks like for you? Again, if you are speculating with these processes, it's going to undermine your business potential to be successful. So when we talk of brand positioning, and a lot of this information is in my book, and if you check on screen, one of the books that I've just published, I've published 11 volume of this book, is Master Sales Communication Process. So as we go into brand positioning, you learn about relationship marketing. You can leverage relationship marketing to position the product and the services in the market. What else does that process looks like? We talk about your visibility process. Now, as we talk about visibility, in the context of brand positioning, visibility means several things. It means represents your understanding of the mass media. Mass media means radio, television, and newspaper. It represents your understanding of social media, and there are a plethora of social media platforms. It represents your understanding of the metaverse, and it represents your understanding of independent communication channel. So again, what I'm saying here is not for the novice, but I'm saying it because you might be a rising star in business who may be going through some challenges with your business and you don't know why. And you don't know why because in many cases, you just don't know what you don't know. But these processes is what's going to set you up for success. So the next time you hear about brand positioning, I want you to start thinking about relationship marketing. I want you to start thinking about your use of social media, mass media, independent communication channel, and the metaverse. These your brand has to be positioned and placed to these through these outlets. Why? Because you want to have reach. Do you have a strategic plan that is helping you to reach the ideal client? So what are your process looks like? Again, if you're not seeing all of this as part of your brand positioning statement, your brand positioning strategy, it's going to undermine your potential to be successful in business. So this is one of the micro processes that you need to understand. Let me push a little further. I also often emphasize that to move your processes forward, you need human resources. And as we talk about human resources, it's not just about appointing any human resources to help you to move your processes forward. It's about identifying, it's about the selection, recruitment, the placement, the acclimatization of the right HR personnel to function in the organization. What does your process looks like? So is either HR department, they have to understand your process, the criteria in which you identify the ideal client, and in the placement of ads to attract the ideal client, you are using those data points. And let me give an example of what I'm talking about. I'm about to put the need for marketing representative on screen. But if you look at this screen, we are not just saying we need a marketing representative. What this data is saying is that we need, yes, a marketing representative, but what are some skill sets that they should have? One, we are saying that it should be a person should be a holder of a pharmaceutical license. So we want this person to be a pharmacist that has a license. You're specifying the biodata markers. One step further, they must be extremely good with communication skills. Another essential trait that you're looking for. Moving another step further, must have 3 years, relevant experience in the pharmacy or marketing. So you're jotting down the specific skill sets that you expect them to have. And this was prepared by Global Supplies, Global Healthcare Supplies, Inc. Just to give an example. So as you look at the human resources to move your vision forward, is not just looking at human resources. You need to take your time and really ask yourself, what is the essential human resources that we need to move this process forward? And you need to ensure that you document that. It requires some think tank and it requires some, brainstorming to arrive at this. But you still need to know your processes. These are all processes. And when you get the process wrong, it is a predictable factor that will say that your efforts to achieve the goal is going to be compromised. And this is why understanding your processes is so important. Now, one person don't have to know it all, but it means that you need to set the organization up in such a way that at the strategic, tactical, and operational level, you have all of the critical stakeholders that are well trained and well developed to execute on the performance level that you want them to. There's also what we call the technical resources. And I talked about this before. Technical resources is not only machinery, but you may have the need for human technical resources. What is your process to do this? And let me give another example. The top 100, the top 500 companies, when they are doing recruitment, they just don't send the application out to the press. They go on campus, they get their leaders to go on campuses, and they interface with lecturers and professors. And the lecturers and professors will know the high performance in the classroom. And guess what? From there, they start their selection and recruitment process because they are looking for a certain mindset, a certain technical capability for the organization. What does your process looks like? So you want to be successful in what you're doing, and you have no understanding of the importance of these processes, these best practices. So these are things that you really need to pause a bit and really think them through. Now, if you can't think them through and you don't necessarily need to know everything, is to ensure that you have on your strategic, tactical, and operational team, particularly so the strategic and tactical team, the kind of brain power that can help in this regards. Two more concepts I'm going to look at here. Now, you often hear me say that there's a cost to run a business. There's a cost to doing business. There's what we call the capital resource needs. What does your process look like in this regard? There are many persons that is going to start a business and scale a business, attempt to scale a business, only to recognize that you don't have the capital resource needs. Now, as a leader who is doing a business, you stress testing your potential client to see if they reach the criteria. Do they have the ability to pay for your services? Do they have the willingness to pay for your services? You want to stress test all of this. You just don't want to have a client, waste time with a client, only to recognize that the client don't have the ability and the willingness to pay for your services. Now, in our context, when we recognize that the client don't have the capital to pay for funding, we have relationships with financial institutions. So based on your preparedness for funding, we can then set you up for capital. So if you are this type of business that can set people up to access capital, perhaps you're helping them to fix a problem and creating business for yourself at the same time. But what does your process look like? So understanding processes are very, very important to successfully manage your business and any business. You need to understand these processes. Now, it takes leadership. It takes leadership to develop these processes. And I can't wait to get my hands on Frank's book, Sung Business Leadership. I can't wait to get my hands on this book. And I want to encourage you, the general public, to reach out to us to start making arrangements to get you copies of this book, Sound Business Leadership. It takes leadership to develop these processes. And this is by developing these processes, you want to systemize them. All right? You want to systemize them so they become part of your standard operating procedure. That's what's going to set you up for success in business. All right? Systemization, I may not talk about that today. I will probably look at it briefly, but systemization is what allows you to get transparency with your processes. And how important is transparency? So when you learn a process, let us suppose that the top leadership learns the process and the top leader fell ill, but then the only person that knows the process is the top leader. So you have to now ask another top leader to perhaps fill in that position. What happens there? Because you have your process documented and you have a step-by-step approach in terms of how the processes roll out, because you create a degree of transparency with it, you can hand the process book over to the next leader and to see a step-by-step approach in terms of how a process is executed on. You have transparency. So that's one benefit in systemizing your processes. I'm going to pause here for now and hand over to Frank. And so I know he will dig deeper into what he's doing in terms of leadership. All to you, Frank. You're mute, Frank.
That's what I realized. Thanks.
Yeah, welcome.
So the last thing I left off about is talking about being having that chance for great leadership. And how can you realize great leadership? There are traits that a great leader will lay. You see, if your management style includes these traits, then you're doing something right. Becoming the ultimate leader can be learned because a great supervisor positively influences others, and they have the ability to develop and grow employees. They have the ability to earn the employees' trust, and they know how to achieve results that matter. And if, in order to put this into practice daily, these traits a leader must have. One is to be an influencer. An influential leader builds momentum by learning how to critically solve problems and has mastered the art of staying calm under pressure. An influencer is known for always having a solution to the problem and knowing the right tactics to effectively execute. Then the second trait is that they manage like a mentor. Good leaders continuously develop the people who work closely with them. And it is important to realize the teaching moments as they happen, much like a mentor. The ultimate leader will share knowledge. They know how to teach while leading. They also foster an environment of trust. People can trust you. Trust is earned when you communicate, when you listen, when you observe. You need to be as honest and transparent as possible, and then trust will develop in no time. And one way to quickly gain trust is to communicate every step of the way. You see, communication allows you to be a consistent leader who strives to fulfill promises. And then you will always see results. The most effective leaders, they produce by example and understand how to do the job of everyone below them. If an employee takes leave on notice or is struggling to perform, that leader can jump right in and then steer the ship. And here's the tip: if you become an influencer, if you manage like a mentor, if you gain trust, you will always get results. What to do when you have never witnessed great leadership? Difficult, but it's achievable. Sometimes the poor leader is born because they've never experienced a great leader. In order to develop your own great leadership style, you need to take one good quality that you absolutely love about a past supervisor or anyone in leadership role that you may have worked with, worked along with, and incorporate those qualities in your daily practice. If you're trying to master this along with the traits that I've just mentioned, then you can be a great leader in no time. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks for that share, Frank. The role of a leader could never be underestimated in any attempt to start and scale a business. Leadership in the context of proactive leadership is something that I love emphasizing because in business, you want to think ahead. You don't want to react. You want to think ahead. Yes, in cases you may be forced to react, but you want your dominant state of mind to be that of thinking ahead. You want your dominant state of mind to be that of seeing beyond problems. And you want your dominant state of mind to be that of being able to take informed action to achieve a desired end results. Perhaps I'll talk some more about that when I return, but I want to turn now to Peter Scott to talk to us a little bit more about his master plan programs and any other thoughts that he has to contribute to the conversation today. Peter, all to you.
Yeah. Yeah, because master planning requires an individual to take a bird's eye view of the processes, programs, the systems that are being engaged. You know, for you to have a broadened spectrum of all that is involved. So it is that strategic positioning, and the term strategy comes from the Greek philosophy of a general over an army, having that control, or not necessarily control, but having the placement and understanding how what needs to be done, the management of the various elements of his army, with the end result. The end result is to win the battle. So master planning, there's, it requires, as a practice, what does great mind do is a question that we're asking on this program. Great minds seek to have a whole scale view, a bird's eye view, a broad view of all the elements that are within the scope of his processes so that he's able or she's able to maneuver effectively, to be able to make long term decisions, to see the future, and to make decisions now that is going to take him or her into the future that is designed. Now, as that relates to what I said before, as we examine human growth and development, the broad term view that we have to look at is at a time where there is a couple of years out of a global pandemic. What we do realize is that a generation ago, or even 10 years ago, we were not as integrated as we were. Humanity as a whole, what happens in one nation didn't so much affect what is happening in another nation, or at least we didn't have the social media that shows us what is happening. But with the rise of social media, where and technology, we're able to at real time to see what is happening thousands of miles away from where we are. So now we become more integrated. We have more information, more informed information, if I should say it that way, not just the data that is a speculation, that is speculatory. We have real data by which we can make decisions. It is wise. A wise person will look at the data as we are communicating about human growth. We're speaking about the development of businesses and the advancement of businesses, which is what, commerce and how we trade and how we supply human needs. But then, based upon what has been happening even since the pandemic, we have to have a more informed approach to where we're going and what we're doing as a whole, where humanity is concerned. I listened to Frank a while ago as he was speaking about the various spectrums of leadership and how a good leader would fill certain characteristics in his role to be able to maintain the end result of what the project that he is responsible for, the management of human resources, so that he can, pull trust. Now, what I'm saying, it is within that respect, as humanity as a whole, where leaders are concerned, where the various stratas of leadership are concerned, where in whether it is in business, whether it is in government, whether it is in church and religion, whether it is in family, the full spectrum of leadership, we have to have a more integrated approach, because human beings, I dare to say it's the first time, but I would think that it is the first time when there are so many dynamisms that are coming together that is putting humanity uh, at in danger. So let me leave that. I just said it a while ago, because if we should now look at building a network, an effective network is what is really essential. And as I mentioned a while ago, the network that is necessary is when all parties together, all the stakeholders that provide human growth development. The human person has a vast variant of needs. He has needs for food, clothing, and shelter for his physical. So individuals who are providing these needs have to also understand that beyond just the physical need, he has his sociological needs, he has his spiritual needs. And if we are going to really contend as a species, it is not enough for us to have the balance, the balance sheet. It's not just enough to, at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year, the balance sheet is done, and we now can, give the various awards to those individuals who have contributed to the rise and the standing of the business. We got to realize that there are some other conditions happening where the human species is concerned, and the rate at which it is happening. It's not just that things are happening and the threats are there, it's the rate at which it is happening. Let me just say this. The individual who are so much into global warming, they recognize, and oftentimes we hear these individuals come about and they say that if something is not done now, then by X time, they make their predictions of what is going to happen. What I'm saying from the data, from the data that is there, from the birth rate, the decline birth rates, and all the other threats, we can make projections to understand that something is happening that needs to be addressed. Something, so the human network have to come together now to look at the data. And this is what I'm driving here. All our systems now is for us to look at the data and recognize that something is happening that we did not have, we weren't aware of before. And if we do not do this, from my standpoint, if we do not do this, we do not want to reach to the point where we're now at such a condition whereby it is we can't do much about it. It's more than just the balance sheet now. And so with that, the master planning that we engage is to bring the network of humanity together for us to make informed decisions. I'll just rest it at there, this point, Gary.
All right. Again, thanks for that share, Peter. Of course, you're dealing with some macro issues, but I feel your passion as a theologist, as a person who is concerned with sustainable human growth. I feel your concern. However, as we begin to wrap up, there's a couple of things that I want to say. Leadership is not blind. All right? Leadership is not blind. And I believe that today more than ever in the world, we need leaders that truly understands human potential. And in understanding human potential is to now be able to rise to that occasion to help humanity to self-actualize. All right, to help humanity to self-actualize. I think it is this effort to help humanity to self-actualize that is going to help the business in of themselves to be better, to be more competitive, to be more strong, to be all of these different things. It is by recognizing a process to human self-actualization. And I do believe that once those processes are clearly established, it's easier to systemize them. Now, what I can do is just share some of my experiences with the general public on the context of self-actualization. Today, our companies, we are interfacing with leaders from across the world. And only last week, I had the pleasure of engaging with a scholar. She studies science and food and nutrition. And one of the things that became clear during our conversation is that while having a strong academic thesis is very important, the academic thesis in of itself is inadequate. And as the scientist begins to do the analysis in terms of how food influence our physiology and how food influence the mind, there were some aha moments there. You know, as younger folks growing up, our old foreparents would say you're what you eat. And very often you disregard that, or you don't have a clear interpretation of what, grandma and grandpa might be saying. You're what you eat. But then the scientists went in to look at the minerals in the soil. And if those minerals are depleted, the food in itself that is grown from the earth, it don't have the essential minerals that the body needs. And if the body now is deprived of the essential minerals, we are all down-regulated being. And if you're a down-regulated being, the executive motor skills, the physiology doesn't work the way it's supposed to work. So as we talk about leadership and processes and system in the context of business, all of this is relevant. And I'm happy that we're having some scientific minds on board that are beginning to speak their truth to the subject. However, I'm going to pause there in the interest of time because we got to wrap up the program now. So I'm going to come right back to Peter to give his closing remarks. And then I'll come back to Frank, and I'll also ask Frank to give his closing remarks and talk to us a little bit about his book. Peter, to you. You're mute, Peter. You're mute.
All right. So, looking at yes, the bird's eye view on everything, the macro, as Gary mentioned it, because having a better master planning require that we take that into consideration, and then we balance between find the sweet spot between the macro and the micro, and in terms of timelining, how do we balance between the immediate and the long term. So there are certain things that we have to bring together. So the master planning process, even as you mentioned a while ago, and taking into consideration the human network development and the human resource development, the master planning process that we are engaging right now is to bring together stakeholders into into a common place where we begin to have shared values, and it is important for communication. It's very much important for individuals to have these viable communication engagement where we look away from not just our emotional attachments of politics and the various baggages that I may say that we engage with as a whole, but it is to look at the data. Master planning requires that we do examine the data. We're not discussing politics when we're talking about human growth and development. This goes beyond politics. This goes beyond political affiliation. This goes beyond religion. This goes beyond all the various segments that are used to serve humanity. We have to engage the data, those inform, so that we can make informed decisions. And we have enough data. We have more than enough data for us to make the changes. But let me close with this, because one of the major data point that is essential when we're looking at master planning is to understand laws, is to understand that we are, and even as we're speaking about leadership within the processes and systems and what great minds do, great minds take into consideration the structures that brings life together. that there is laws that support, even as we break down the processes that engage the development of a business systematically. There are principles and laws that supports these conversations that we're having. If we do not abide by these principles, we cannot have the results that we are looking for. So, in this respect, what we also seek to engage the community to understand that we are not, or we cannot be emotionally driven in our engagements. We have to understand the laws that governs life. We have to understand the laws of human development. We have to understand the laws that governs societal engagement, relationships, everything in life. And when I say, let me close with this finally, everything that goes that we deal with where life is concerned, it's not rules. It's not just about the rules. And the rules are what I can get away with. I can break a rule and get away with it if nobody sees me. But there are, where laws are concerned, I cannot break a law and get away with it. And as humanity as a whole, we have to understand that there are laws that governs the various sectors of humanity, human growth, master planning. We cannot plan outside of the reality or the structures of how life works. And it is within that we can gain the success. We can gain the end results that cause humanity to really grow and thrive. And we can look at society, and it is not just some segments and sectors of society that is thriving, but everyone is given the chance to really prosper as life purports. With that, I'll rest my case. Thank you, Gary.
All right, over to Frank. All to you now, Frank.
Thank you. You guys are hearing me?
Loud and clear.
All right, I just want to close off on the mindset of the great leader. And there's certain things that um, characteristics that they must have, which is crucial to effective leadership. They need to be self-aware, have emotional intelligence. They must have a growth mindset. There should be resilience. Empathy is important. You must have vision and purpose. You must be able to communicate effectively. You should have that character of adaptability, especially in today's fast-paced, um, dynamic, organized business world. You need to have courage. Leadership often requires making those tough decisions. You need to be courageous enough to take the risk and stand up for what you believe in. Then there's a servant leadership. And this is where the mindset, where the leaders prioritize the needs of their team members and work to support the growth and development, where they foster loyalty, commitment, and high performance. Now, if you master these aspects of the manager mindset, the leadership mindset, then you as a leader can unlock your full potential, inspire greatness in others. As for the book Song Leadership, song leadership will have benefits, especially the managers. And if you're manager and you're looking, the benefits are both for you personally and professionally. And some of the key advantages for manager when you read the book is how to make your decision making should be effective, how you can increase productivity, how you can enhance your team's performance, how you can better communicate, how you improve your employee retention. Um, Another benefit is conflict resolution. You have innovation and creativity, personal development, and organizational success. Strong leadership in summary, benefit you as a manager by enhancing all of these, whether it's decision making, productivity, team performance, etc. It enhances those benefits for you. So that's what the book is all about. And it's not just for the managers, it's for families, leader in the family, for politicians, for leaders in the whole. Thank you, Gary.
All right, thanks for that share, Frank. I want to thank our listening audience from around the world who would have taken the time to be part of today's program. I also want to thank those who will be listening to the rebroadcast. And thanks for being here today. Today we look at leadership processes and systems in the context of business. Of course, we look at what great minds do. And there's a number of important points that we would have made. And I trust you would have jotted down some of them in terms of things that great minds do to move their processes and forward. So with that being said, I want to thank both Peter and Frank for being here today. And we will do this again on Wednesday. On Wednesday, we'll be looking at big ticket money habits. We're going to be looking deep into money habits that are so vital, and particularly in today's world, where even as an academic, even as a holder with a master's degree, you still feel as though you're going paycheck to paycheck. And how can we correct that? On Wednesday, we'll talk some more about that. So with that being said, Peter, Frank, I want to thank you guys for being here today, and see you guys on Wednesday.